Hello, this is Angelia. Let's put my mic back where it usually is. I move it away to do my highlighting and then forget sometimes to move it back. But anyway, this is, you are listening to or watching the podcast, Why You Do What You Do. The podcast that talks about human development and psychology to maybe help you figure out a little bit more about why you do what you do. And we've been talking about death. Like I say, if I'm the first person to tell you that if you're alive, you're going to die, I'm sorry to break the bad news to you. But it's a thing. So we're going to keep talking about that for a little bit. Some modern social customs have evolved from ancient ones. And, you know, like I said, every different culture has a different way of dealing with death. Embalming goes back to a practice common in ancient Egypt and China. A lot of people don't know China also mummified, but they did. Mummification, preserving a body so the soul can return to it. And that was their belief in ancient Egypt, is that, you know, they preserve the body because maybe someday the soul is going to come back, or they're going to take the body to the afterlife, you know, and so they needed that. A traditional Jewish custom is never to leave a dying person alone. Anthropologists suggest that the original reason for this may have been a belief that evil spirits hover around, trying to enter a dying body. And I saw a movie like that one time, so evidently the Jewish people know that that's a thing. Such rituals give people facing a loss something predictable and important to do at a time when they otherwise might feel confused and helpless. And let's face it, if someone is dying, there's really nothing you can do. You can keep them comfortable, you can keep them company, and that's about it. So, you know, you probably will feel a little bit helpless because there's nothing you can really do for them. Like I said, unless you can keep them comfortable, keep them happy, you know, pray for them. That's pretty much all you can do. The Mortality Revolution. Reading Little Women is a vivid reminder of the great historical changes regarding death and the dying that have taken place since the last 19th century. And if you haven't read the book, I recommend the book. Like I said, someone gave it to me when I was 9, and I really like it. I still got it over there on the shelves. Especially in developed countries, advances in medicine and sanitation, new treatments for many once fatal illnesses, and a better educated, more health-conscious population have brought about a mortality revolution. So people are living longer and people taking better care of themselves for the most part. There's always going to be people who don't, and they don't care. But for the most of us, if we can get some extra years in there to, you know, spend with grandkids and great-grandkids, we're going to do that. Women today are less likely to die in childbirth. And, I mean, that's true. There's prenatal care. They have a team of doctors in there when you're giving birth. So, you know, that's a very rare thing to happen today. Infants are more likely to survive their first year. And I know from doing me and my husband's genealogies on the computer, a lot of our great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents and up, there was usually 1 or 2 stillborns in the family of, you know, 5+ kids. There would be a stillborn child. So evidently, you know, that was the thing that was happening, you know, in the first year. And some of them died as babies. So, you know, evidently it was rougher back in the day on little people. Children are more likely to grow to adulthood. And I know of a few cases also where a child had died. And like I said, my sister passed away when she was only 12. So, you know, more kids are growing to be older now. And, you know, children aren't looked at as something expendable. I heard a story where, you know, in, I think it was probably the 1700s, where a man was having as many children as he could so that at least maybe a few of them would live on to carry his name. So, you know, evidently back in the day that was just a given that you were going to lose some, so you might as well have as many as you can. Young adults like Alcott's sister Lizzie are more likely to reach old age, and older people often can overcome illnesses they grew up regarding as fatal. That's like years ago, polio. They thought, because people were dying from polio. My mom had polio, my husband's mom had polio, and they survived once because, they got the vaccine and treatments and things. So, there are people in my family who have said, why are they alive? And it's like modern medicine, it's keeping folks alive. So, we've made great strides in not dying. The top causes of death in the United States in the 1900s were diseases that most often affected children and young people. Pneumonia and influenza, and also old. These things affect the very young and the very old because the systems are weak. Tuberculosis, diarrhea, and enteritis. Now, still, in some third world countries, they die from diarrhea, again, it depends on where you're from. I mean, nowadays, we take our Pepto or Imodium and go on with our life. And, they can't do that. So, it matters where you're born. Today, 3/4 of all deaths in the United States occur among people ages 65 and over. So that's the majority. Over 75% are going to live to be at least 65. And that's, when you can start getting Social Security. They've booted it up, and they want to boot it up even more. But, for my parents' generation, 62 was the number, and then they said 65 for mine, but now they've booted that up to 67, and they're talking about booting it up to 70. So if most people live to be at least 65, basically, it's an insurance type gamble, to where they bet you're not going to be much older than that when you die, so they're going to let you collect your Social Security, because you're going to die pretty soon after that age. There's 75% chance. So, the system is not rigged for us, but against us. So, when they talk about raising the age, some people are like, me. It's like, well, each year after 65, the chance goes up for you to not make it to the next year after 65. So, I think there needs to be some reform there. And 60% of all deaths are from heart disease. Heart disease. Cut out the fat. Take your drugs if you get them, for cholesterol. Take that fish oil every day. Because you need to keep your heart healthy. Do some exercise. Do what you can do. Cancer. We know what carcinogens are. We know smoking, doing drugs, and, eating bad stuff that you just are empty calories are going to do stuff to you. So, if you can cut those out, cut those out. And stroke. Unfortunately, sometimes you can't help stroke. Now, sometimes if it's the plaques and things in your arteries, you can help that. Same way you would help the heart disease. But sometimes there are weak vessels, and people have aneurysms and strokes, and, just do the best you can to take care of yourself, and you'll lessen, the chance of that going on. The 3 leading causes of death in late adulthood. So those are the big 3 there. Heart disease, cancer, and stroke. So those are the things you need to be looking out for once you get over 65. Take care to keep as little fat and cholesterol in your diet as you can. You do need some. Your brain needs it to form the myelin connections. You need myelin sheaths in all your nerves. So you need some, but you need a healthy amount. You can't eat burgers and fries at every meal and expect you're going to be healthy. A guy made a movie about that. But anyway, cancer, the carcinogens, don't take them into your body. And like I say, the prevention for the heart will also help with the strokes. And don't overexert yourself. A lot of people, find stuff difficult, but they're stubborn and they want to do stuff anyway, like these people you see out jogging when it's 108 degrees. And it's like, well, if you drop, people are going to know why. So, common sense needs to come into play too. Mortality rates for older adults have decreased sharply in recent years, especially among men, mainly due to a declining rate of death from heart disease in the United States and other developed countries, because people are figuring out, if you're sitting there eating fat all day long, it's just stocking away in your arteries, unless you eat some foods with vitamin K, like your salads and greens and things, that take that out, you're going to have a problem. And of course the drugs, the cholesterol drugs and statins and, your blood pressure drugs, that's definitely going to help. Death rates from some cancers also have fallen, and that's because some of the treatments are getting good enough to actually kill the cancer. My husband has a cousin who has had 4 different types of cancer and has beat each and every one of them. So it's getting better. Cancer treatment is getting better. It's not a death sentence like it used to be. Like I said, I had someone in my family that they started taking treatment and it was pulling them down fast, and so they said, I'm going to stop because I'm so sick now. I wasn't sick before, I didn't feel bad, so I'm going to stop doing it. And then they lived another year and a half. And then I had another relative who had a similar type, and they took the chemo and they were gone in 6 months. So it's getting better. The treatments are not as harmful as they used to be. They're more specifically targeted treatments, and they're even using your own T cells and some things, so it's getting better. I think there's a rumor that there is a cure for cancer, that another country found it, but the drug companies don't want that because they're making too much money, doing the chemo. But we don't know for sure, but hopefully one day, there will be a widespread cure, and, people won't have to die from that. Even when further reductions in cancer death rates, the incidence and burden of cancer will most likely increase as the population continues to age. Like I said, our boomers now are all getting up there. Some of them are already gone based on the different years, that they always give you that 20-year, and 25-year generation. So our oldest ones might already be gone. A lot of them are. But our younger ones are now getting up in the over 60 ages and over 80 ages and over 100 ages. So as more of them start having health issues, that is going to be more of a pull on the system. So, if you want to get into medicine, I'd say now is a great time to do it. As death increasingly becomes a phenomenon of late adulthood, it becomes invisible and abstract. And I'm not sure exactly what they mean by that, because it's certainly not invisible and abstract, because a lot of people over 60 think about it quite often. So, many older people lived and died in retirement communities. And maybe that's what they mean, is like they hid it away. I don't know. But yeah, it used to be, when the grandmas and grandpas got too old to fend for themselves, someone either took them in or they went into a retirement home. Care of the dying and the dead become largely a task for professionals. That really goes without saying. When you have the ability to have medical care and things like that, you're certainly going to use it. So, such social conventions as placing the dying person in a hospital or nursing home and refusing to openly discuss his or her condition reflected and perpetuated attitudes of avoidance and denial of the death. And now what I heard from one professor was this was kind of an attitude in the 40s, 50s, 60s, is you just kind of hide them away in the home, and you don't talk about it anymore. You go to visit them once a week, if they're still there, and that was kind of an attitude. So it's not like that anymore, and I think that's sad that it was ever really a part of the culture, that was just the way it was. Death, even of the very old, came to be regarded as a failure of medical treatment rather than as a natural end to life. And there was a lot of that attitude, when I was growing up. It's like, oh, it's the doctor's fault. There's still people who do that. It's the doctor's fault. If they'd have done this, that, and the other thing. Well, maybe, but let's face the facts. If a person is dying, they're going to die anyway. And no matter what someone does to help them or not, chances are they're going to die anyway. So, like I say, most doctors and nurses do the best they can. Certainly not all. There are some with attitudes. There have been some that have done horrible things. I had some horrible things done to me. But, most people do care, and they do want to take care of the patients. And so, be sure that your emotions are not accusing people of doing things that they're not doing, just because you're upset and feel helpless that you can't help this person. Today, this picture is changing. Violence, drug abuse, poverty, and the spread of AIDS makes it harder to deny the reality of death, because we see it on the news every day. Thanatology, the study of death and dying, is arousing interest, and educational programs have been established to help people deal with death. And there are more and more hospice type agencies, and this is become a thing. Because let's face it, like I say, if you were born, you're gonna die. Unless the Lord sucks us up any day now, you're probably gonna die. So again, that is something that you might look into, because it is a needed service. Excuse me. Because of the prohibitive cost of extended hospital care that cannot save the terminally ill, many more deaths are occurring at home. And I know, like I said, my family members with cancer, they once had decided that no more, they went home to die. And that's where they did. So, I think that's a more humane thing than keeping someone in a hospital or nursing home forever, is to let them die at home. Care of the dying. Along with the growing tendency to face death more honestly, movements have arisen to make dying more humane. And it used to be, people, oh, they're not going to die, or, I'm not going to. Well, you are. So, and other people are gonna. So, and like I said, with, as in the book, keeping the person comfortable, giving them drinks of water, a little something to eat, entertain them, talk to them, just let them know you're there, so these include hospice care and self-help support groups for dying people and their families. And like I said, hospice was helping two of my relatives and one of my husband's relatives when they were passing away. So, I think hospice care is a great calling for people who feel like they want to do that. Hospice care is personal, patient and family-centered care for the terminally ill. Its focus is on palliative care, relief of pain and suffering, control of symptoms, maintaining a satisfactory quality of life, and allowing the patient to die in peace and dignity. At one point I was told that's what I was getting now, was palliative care. They were giving me my tramadol, and basically, I was being written off. Well, guess what? My red cell size went down from 24% over to 10% over. And the doctor was like, oh, well, we would call that remission. We wouldn't even say you had it now. And I'm like, thank you, Jesus. I had a lot of people praying for me, and, I believe that makes a difference. But also, I did, get a new doctor and new drugs, and, there was a medical trial that I went through with JAK2 inhibitors. And so, just because one person tells you you're going to die, get a second opinion. Because my next doctor was like, I wouldn't even say you had it now. That's within 10%. That's normal people, And so, I'm happy now. Last time I went, it was up to 12 over again. So it's going the wrong way. Hospice care usually takes place at home, but with such care, it can be given in a hospital or another institution, at a hospice center, or through a combination of home and institutional care. And now, my husband's grandmother, she went to the hospice center. She was in a assisted living facility, and they transferred her to the hospice center. And now, with the people in my family, the hospice nurses came to the home, delivered the medication and, things, and checked up on them. So, there are different ways that that's done. Family members often take an active part. And like in my family, there was a family member who stayed with them. With my husband's grandmother, she was in the same town as one of her daughters, who would come every day and check on her. And then her other daughter would come once a week and check on her, and we would go up there also once a week on a Sunday, and sit there. And then when they made the call, we all came, and like I said, my youngest son got in the bed with her and laid there with her, holding her hand. And somebody said something, and I'm like, no, you let him do that. They were close, and this is part of his grieving. Let him do that. In 2001, about 3,200 hospice programs in the United States provided care to an estimated 775,000 patients. So here we go, 775,000 patients, but only 3,200 hospice programs. So that's a pretty good discrepancy. So like I say, if you think that you have something to offer someone who's transitioning, then you might want to go into hospice care. Excuse me. What does it mean to preserve the dignity of dying patients? Because that is important. One research team decided to ask patients themselves, which, that makes sense. From interviews with 50 Canadian patients with advanced terminal cancer, the researchers developed a list of dignity-related questions, concerns, and treatment guidelines. And, it's good that you talk to the actual person dying to get their take on things. Above all, the researchers concluded dignity, conserving care, depends not only on how patients are treated, but on how they are viewed. So, not just on how you're treating, but how you look. I have seen nurses just basically, oh well. So, they need to know that they're still valued, they're still seen. When dying patients are seen and know that they are seen as being worthy of honor and esteem by those who care for them, dignity is more likely to be maintained. Excuse me. Because that's what we all want. We want to go with dignity. We don't want to feel like we're a burden. We don't want to feel like we're shoved in a corner somewhere and nobody cares about us anymore. We want to be taken care of. We want to be cared for. And, feel like there are people around who love us, who are seeing us on our way to the next, dimension, platform, adventure, whatever you want to call it. because, then we're going to feel like we made a difference, and, somebody is there to care. And it can be more comfortable and more, like in the book it talked about how she smiled and was happy. And that's what we all want to do. We don't want to go alone and afraid. We want to, have people there and to have some familiar things happening so that we feel like we're going on and, going to our next life. And that's where I'm going to leave you for today. I hope that helps you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. Please like and share this educational program so we can spread it around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me out even more, go to my Patreon page and become a patron. Thanks for watching or listening. That's all for now. Until next time.